like to, I will tell you a little bit what I'm going to do, and then I will start the workshop. Let me see. Yes. I would like to, this little workshop is a little bit different from the one from Bob Dick, of course, because Bob Dick is talking, I would think, he's talking the experience from the global north, as Ray was calling it yesterday, global north. And my workshop has more to do with the, let's say, the global south. So I would like to, and it's also not so much on action learning, but it's a different approach in learning, what we call in discovery experiential learning. So I would like to introduce you to discovery and experiential learning. And I would like in this workshop to give you a little feel of how the principle of this learning approach can be applied for the training of participatory action researchers or participatory social foresters or people that are working with problems in let's say the global south. This program, my morning program, but your night program is that I will first tell you a little narrative, and if you can give your impressions in the chat box from the Zoom program. So if you have that ready, that would be nice. And then I will explain a bit about the history, our history of working in the field of social forestry. I will then go to our specific way of how we looked at training and learning. And I will explain a bit of the spiral of learning, the steps in a training program. And then we will go into this practice of brainstorming session, which is part of this spiral of learning. And at the end, we get to the plenary and we will have some concluding remarks. Jennifer will help me in the brainstorming session because there we will use a different method or technique on internet, which is Miro, and I'm really not very much experienced in that one. So she will explain about that one. Let me start with my little narrative. It is a narrative of a lion who wanted to swim. He really wanted to swim to an island. Let's say he wanted to go from Australia to Tasmania. There once was a lion who wanted to visit an island far in the sea. He went to the beach and asked the fish to teach him how to swim. The fish took a comfortable position and told the lion that swimming was the easiest thing in the world. You just have to move your limbs a bit, and there you go. The lion thanked the fish. He jumped into the water and nearly drowned. When he recovered, he asked the second fish to teach him how to swim. The fish asked the lion to watch him, how he did the movements. The fish swam quietly in front of the lion and made all the movements very carefully, so that the lion was able to see every little detail. He explained the difficulties to the lion. The lion observed everything and thanked the fish wholeheartedly. And at the end of the demonstration, he jumped into the water and this time nearly died. This time, it took him much longer to recover. But finally, he asked a third fish to teach him how to swim. The fish took the lion to swallow water and made him walk through it for some time. He then took the lion to a deeper water, where he could hardly stand. He asked the lion again to walk as fast as he could. The lion experienced that he barely touched the ground and that he had to keep his head above the water. "I'm swimming," he shouted. "That's just right, you are swimming," said the fish. Then the fish went through the difficult movements with him, and having done this, the fish and the lion swam side by side for some time until both thought that the lion could swim alone. They said goodbye as colleagues, and the lion reached Tasmania a couple of days later. Could you please put in your chat what is the meaning of this narrative, what you see, what happened in this narrative, and how could you relate it to teaching? Everything is clear that we saw kind of 3 different learning teaching approaches. One is the real traditional one where the fish is the expert and not really adapted to what the lion would like to do and what the lion is doing and the difference of the lion. Let me see what you're doing. The power of demonstration versus words. Yes, but the demonstration was so powerful that he still died. Andrew, the lion almost died when he went into the water. The third fish acted in a way that helped the lion develop the necessary skills and confidence. And he was, especially important was for him to keep his head out of the water. So he was not a fish, he had no limbs, he had he had feet. So I will tell you now what was our history. I started some 30 years ago with a group of people, foresters and social scientists. We started FMD Consultants. We were actually a little bit the group that Bob Dick was telling. We were several professionals, scientists, social sciences and foresters, and we had 2 people that were dealing with the management. And we were focusing specifically on social forestry programs in the beginning. I was the social scientist, and the foresters, they told us that in forestry, the problem was mainly that they were used to plant trees, but were not used to look at people. So we were so we had to change from, in social forestry, change from trees, looking from instead of trees, look to trees and people. And the training, and we were concentrating on the training of professionals. We were working with local partners, mostly NGOs or educational institutes, universities and training institutes in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, and some international NGOs. In our view, in this social, I will concentrate more on the training and the learning part. In our view, the training of social foresters was needed really a paradigm shift. And I think it's a little bit where we were talking about when Bob Dick was giving his presentation. We need at this moment in our time also, we need a paradigm shift for people really to see that this planet A is the only planet A, and we have to reset economies, we have to reset our thinking. Now, the same was a little bit true in this training. We were thinking about the training of foresters, which are educated in a way of seeing only the forest, to new ways of seeing people instead of forest resources. So we found that the foresters were part of the problem of poverty in the South and not part of the solution. So we wanted to make them more sensitive for the reality of farmers, mostly in the South, mostly subsistence farmers, and the way they were managing woody biomass, and try to appreciate local knowledge of farmers, which was built up in a lifelong learning process, as we could see in the first day when we were looking at the Aboriginals from Tasmania. They have also a lot of knowledge from nature around and their ecological system in the real surrounding, and appreciate that local knowledge. So effective interventions from foresters in programs was to start with people who live near the forest and their relation with trees. That meant that we needed programs that started with include and participation of farmers, not so much the programs that developed their objectives, but the objectives developed by in relation with farmers. And it meant also a lot of learning and unlearning of the foresters, so that they can put a lot of new skills and unlearn their old skills and their old knowledge. In a sense, we wanted them to, it meant developing a step-by-step participatory model, and it meant also a lot of reversals in the organization in which they were working, which were mostly hierarchical organizations, and where they were mostly not allowed really to work with in the field. So it was a changing role of foresters towards more like facilitators. And I think, in a sense, it's a totally different world, but it has a lot to do also with what was said by Bob Dick at the end. We thought social foresters need to recognize the value of existing knowledge of farmers. They need to develop a participatory approach to embed that local knowledge also in their working practice and to enhance this local knowledge in the field. And they have to start to experiment with newly developed models of participatory approach. So that was a bit our, let's say, our history, the history of how we started to think about how we could train those foresters. And then we said, if we really want to start to train foresters, like in the story of the lion, we have to look first at what these foresters are. We have to start with their own experiences. If we start to tell them that they have to look at farmers, it will not work. We cannot convince them. So we have to find out together with them, and we have to connect together with them on their own experiences, their own social reality, their working context, and their ideals. We, in the beginning, when we were starting this, we were having groups of people coming from Latin America, Asia, and Africa, and once they came to the Netherlands, and we developed this course for them. So and then when we know more, when we have explained, when they have explained better their social reality, their context, and their ideals, then we have to see what are the gaps between what they want and what they were actually doing. A little bit also what Bob Dick was saying, how would you prefer your world? How would you prefer how it would be, the ideals? And what they were actually doing, the contradictions between that and is important. And then based on those contradictions and based on that information, we will try to build new theory together with them. We call this the process approach to learning, and in which the trainers, or we as facilitators, we implemented the same type of principles in the training as could be used also by the foresters in the field. I'm talking about forests, but we did the same also with biologists, with ecologists, with social researchers. So the process approach to learning, the starting point is always the social reality, the work context, experiences of the participants, and not the theory from the expert. Then we have in this process, we have a threefold diagnosis. We try to find out what is their practice of the participants, what is their perception on the issue which is at hand, and in which context, from which context they are coming, what is their work context and their national context. And then the threshold or the disparity, which I think this morning, somewhere in the, I wasn't there because I was sleeping, but somewhere in the presentations, there was, they were talking about the threshold, the important threshold to get to learning. And we think that the threshold is mostly between the disparity between ideals and reality. You have to find a way to get a kind of to really get to the ideals of people and to see their reality in a strong way. So learning from experiences in this area is critical reflection. We in the room, we have to have a lot of intuition, imagination, creativity, and search. So we work a lot in the teams also in this process the teams that the creator small teams that can be where we can have this critical reflection. Then the next phase is building the theory from the new practice, for a new practice, a model of participatory action research, or a model for participatory social forestry. Then we always try to have a kind of moment of experimenting, either in the field or experimenting with this approach, and then adapt the approach to the new working context. In a sense, the spiral model of learning has the following model, and it's the spiral. You start with the orientation, and you start with the orientation, of course. You have people come together, they have to know each other, they have expectations, they have certain initial experiences. Then we will generate real life experiences, and we will get to a diagnosis and reflection based on these experiences related to the topic which is at hand. And then we will start to conceptualize based on this diagnosis and reflection. And then probably some kind of expert knowledge can come in to give some extra, some issues that might be important to discuss and analyze more. And we will try to experiment, getting experimentation with this new approach and this new theory, and integrate it into a new practice of working. So we go through these cycles, which were already explained in various situations during this meeting. Now, this is the spiral model of training process, and I would like to do with you a kind of experience or a little exercise, a little practice, which is related to the diagnosis part. So I would like you to go, and Jennifer will explain it more carefully to you. I will ask you to go into small groups, 4 or 5 people maximum, where we will where we will get 3 different questions, and you will use, first step is that you use, as the yellow, you can see on the yellow cards, the first step is that you write your thoughts on an individual card. I would like you to use 1 card for every ID, that you use big letters. Well, you can always write, but you have to write it with the machine. And no more than 3 lines on 1 card. And then we have, for every question, we will have 3 cards. And then you will start to discuss with your group, 4 or 5 people, and we'll start to organize those cards in such a way that you get a new grouping and of IDs that are connected to each other. And then I would like to ask you to give it a heading, give it a title, a card for the title, and then we get someone that is going to present, and present the answers of this question to the plenary. Of course, we will we will first work in the breakout rooms, and then we go to the plenary. The questions I would like to raise, 3 questions, simple questions. What are your most important objectives for action research? What are your 3 most important objectives for action research? You use 3 rose cards, you write them on the rose cards. You will find those cards when you are in the breakout room in the Miro blackboard. It's experimental, but I think that will work out. And the second and third question is, what are your main achievements and main difficulties you have encountered in the practice of action research, participatory research? So the first is, what are your 3 most important objectives for action of participatory research, rose cards? And the second and third, what are your 3 achievements and difficulties encountered in the practice of action research, participatory research, on green and yellow cards? So brainstorm on cards. The first step is, as I told you, you first give your individual answer to the first question. and you use the rose card for that one, and you write on. Yeah, you can put your first card. Put it over there.
Yeah. Ah.
Yes, it's complicated. So one ID per card. Use big letters so that we can read it, and no more than 3 lines on one card. Now then, if you have the cards written about your answers to the questions, the second is read and discuss it in the group. Go to your group and try to find ideas, really explain very carefully what you wanted to do with the ID, and discuss it in the group, and then go to the organizers then and try to find things that are common. Put the things that are common together, and then you can give them a heading. The headings are down, the blue ones and the green ones, which are on the blackboard. You can put a heading, and you can write on your heading what you think are the 3 cards together, what they do mean. And then you get to we will present them in the plenary, and we'll get to a conclusion. So that's what we would like you to do. You have a little bit of time also, because normally when you work in a room, it's quite quickly. You give the cards and you start to write. You have a pencil, but now you have to do it on this Miro blackboard, so it will take you some more time. So we put everything on the wall now.
Oops.
So that you can see it together, so that we have the presenters later on to come to the forefront and explain their flip chart. Yes.
This is group 1, question 1 here.
Yes.
Group 2, question 1, and group 4, question 1. There was no group 3.
Could we have a small presentation from each group on the objectives first, and then we see what are the commonalities in the objectives, and we go to the achievements and the difficulties. Can I ask group 1?
Yeah, sure. So group 1 looked at a range of things on participation and learning, building goals, working together, and role negotiation. So they were the 5 key areas that we were able to group our comments. It was really about the learning experience of using Miro in this way to start with. That was the main kind of theme as well. We were trying to think about what goals we were looking at, but then there was a bit of discussion around purpose. So, making sure that the project had some goals or actions that a meaning that was coming out of it. And then the rest of the discussion was mainly around the participatory approach. Working together, collaboration, those kind of things.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Can we have a presentation from group 2? Group 2. Who is in group 2? Andrew, Angela, Colin, Ron.
Okay. Group 2.
Yes, Colin.
We spent a certain amount of time just trying to get the letters to appear at a consistent size, but we played a bit with our movements and ended up with those 3 main headings. Learning being the obvious thing, that there is learning in action research, outcomes, whether it's achievements or the ownership, and then inclusion was the title we went for when we're talking about the sorts of things we put in that group.
Inclusion, fairness, democratic processes, yeah. Okay, so can you explain a bit more the one of inclusion?
Equity, one of the key things seems to be engaging voices, giving voice to people who usually can't give that access to, haven't got access to influence or to power or whatever. So because of the emphasis on equity and a democratic process, so including all voices, all perspectives, and being fair in that process. Well, fair in sharing airtime, fair in sharing influence, but it's creating space for people who would normally not have an influence. And typically those are with least power.
Okay, thank you very much, Ron. Can we have a look at the group 4, the presentation of group 4? That was Christine, Chairman, Gianca, Trish.
So these are the perspectives of probably, you know, one from each member of our group, and we collectively group them into awareness, you know, finding your blind spots and getting insights and learning. There's active learning going on, obviously, within your action research process, and there's learning for people within your group, and then that is collaborative and participation engagement, and change was another theme, I guess, that came from that, was that we all hoped that there would be change, positive change, that you'd achieve some of your goals, that you would bring about change. So we were kind of all pretty close to each other on what we thought were our objectives, we thought.
Okay, thank you very much. So in a sense, maybe I can just do a little wrap up from this part. In a sense, you have mentioned action research or research as a means of achieving inclusion, participation. You have said that it is also important as a learning for learning processes. Action research is a learning process. You've mentioned a bit that action research is to identify and understand the problems, and maybe even you have mentioned to to getting results, acquire knowledge, and I think getting results to transform the reality in which you are, or to transform the organization where you are, and then as a strategy to formulate formulate transformation in the organization, and have discussion and collaboration among the partners. Can we have a look now, still very quickly, at the achievements you have got from this from action research? What are the main achievements you had in the practice of action research or research? Not everyone has been working in action research, but I mean, what are the main achievements? Please, group number 1, can you?
Yeah, sure. So we looked at things that were outcomes, and we also looked at things that were people related. So the outcomes were around improvement and success. And then we also looked at people related things such as helping others and our own personal growth or other personal growth. And then we also thought that design was significant achievement. So designing something new was also a significant achievement. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. Group number 2, we are going now a little bit faster because I have already consumed my time almost. So please, can we have also group number 2?
Right. Our grouping was basically around almost the balanced scorecard, individual outcomes, organisation outcomes, processes and relationships was how we ended up with those sorts of achievement, those grouping of achievements.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. And then.
Well, we were just in the process, so we actually ran out of time. But this kind of this bit here says this was a little bit about teams. This was a little bit about you know, collaboration and working together. This was really about what happens down here is the achievements within our respective organisations. And this was actually my comment, the achievements that I had with regards engaging our communities. We just didn't have time to get our labels in. We were just in the process of trying to put them into their groups. So our next one's a bit rubbish because we ran out of time here. But anyway, next.
Okay, next. difficulties?
Yes, so for our group with the difficulties, there were significant issues around resources and also starting the project is another kind of area of difficulty. Managing behaviours within the organisation, particularly CEO, and capabilities, different levels of understanding and learning that yeah, kind of got in the way. And process issues pretty important, that hard to manage really large groups and so on. And the one I put in ethics. Always a problem when you need ethical approval from university. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much.
Our ones were obviously areas of resistance of all types, resistance at the concept, resistance throughout the project, and perhaps the idea of resistance purely because of the binary thinking of you can't get around the concept of action research, too used to, you know, top-down management or that sort of thing. Or an area that was related to resistance, but we split it apart, was the fact that you need support and you often don't get it. Getting started, as John just said, and support throughout the project. There's the question of resource with the time it takes to do a project. There are the personal costs associated, the fact that it wears you down trying to do a project. There are costs associated with the project. And then probably coming back to that idea of resistance is the organisational interference, the sabotaging that can occur to stop you achieving.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much. That is heavy, those difficulties, no? Here we have. Can you maybe you can?
We obviously didn't get time to put our headings on here.
One question. Can you relate to the other two? Can you make?
Yeah, definitely. You know, it is about time. It's about your higher level stuff. You know, ethical. This is something that we met in, and organizational resistance, I guess, comes in with that, having to engage in challenge. I guess it does repeat a number of the other things, is what you're trying to say. Moving on, but we were just in the process of trying to separate things out. But this one is critical, you know, that people don't have time, and I guess that links to that your organization as well, and the capacity to be able to support such a process. But well, this wasn't mine, but it was an issue for me. But anyway, okay, I know you've got to move on quick because you're running out of time.
Yeah, okay. So it's interesting to see that you have this resistance so clearly in at least two of the flip charts as a kind of strong difficulty. And it would be interesting, of course, we are just getting this feel of the brainstorming session. And I think we, in a normal process, we would really go into certain of these difficulties and to relate them to the ideals which you proposed in the objectives of your diagnosis. So see what maybe you have to find out more in detail. What are those resistance really are, and what is that sabotage really? What is the meaning of that sabotage? Of course, the cost and the time is probably more easy to understand, but especially those kind of things we have to understand better, and before we can really enter into improving also the theory, in this case, improving the theory related to action research. I would like to finish this part. I've got in my presentation, I also wanted to see some of those methods we are using in this training, in this spiral of learning. So I put some of them in there, and I will send you the PDF of this presentation so that you can have a look at how we work. This is also just by way of example. In the spiral of learning, we have the diagnosis, we have the theorization, experimentation, and action planning. And if we plan a course, for example, we have planned courses for 9 months, then we are 3 weeks almost working on the diagnosis. So what you have done now in 40 minutes, we might be much longer, going much more into detail to get really a good picture of what's the situation of the participants. And then we have a period of developing participatory approach to, in this case, to forestry. And then we had a 6 weeks experimentation. And at the end, we had the 3 weeks where we came back and tried to incorporate the new ideas that were found in the experimentation, incorporate them, and then everyone could go to their own workplace and with an action plan. But if we have a small cycle, 5 sessions, we might have 1 session related to diagnosis and 3 sessions related to conceptualizing and 1 session again to action. So that's a little bit in time how we plan in this spiral of learning, the process we go through. I think it was a nice experience for me. It was also a nice experience because I've never done it in a Zoom meeting, to be honest. If we are doing the, you can see if we are doing the in a workshop, you get everything on the wall. Now you had it on a kind of very different type of wall. But I mean, we can. I hope you got a feel of what this approach is all about. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you also for trying to find out how the technology works. Thank you very much.